Ian Neiman, Brian Wilson, Mary Catherine Ham, today's newsmakers, and you. The Morning Majority, 6:30.
WMAL. 7:07 on the Morning Majority. We have KT McFARLAND with us this morning, Fox News national security analyst, and she hosts a show, DEFCON 3, Wednesdays at 2 on live.foxnews.com, so you should tune into that. KT, how's it going?
Everything's good.
Good. You didn't get hit too hard by any storms?
Well, I'm
and
on
or
Eastern
earthquakes?
Long Island, so in fact we did get hit by the storm.
Ooh, are you doing all right?
Yeah. I mean, lost a couple of trees, but there's really not any electricity in Eastern Long Island, because the problem is all of our electric wires and television and cable and everything are all above ground. So we had a lot of heavy winds, and the winds knocked down the telephone poles and the electric wires, and then you have live wires everywhere, and so the electricity goes out.
All right, well, keep it safe, KT. In Syria, the U.S. ambassador to Syria, there's some video going around of him being attacked. A little physical assault. It's not a huge thing. It doesn't look like.
But
I mean, as far as the actual contact, but what does that mean diplomatically?
Well, that's an act of war. Okay, yeah. Anybody's ambassadors and embassies are their sovereign territory.
Right.
So if that's happening, A, it's not an accident. B, it's ratcheting up the situation. Now, why would they be doing that? Assad is nervous. He looks at Libya and he says, Gaddafi, I'm like Gaddafi, I might be next. And whether you think Libya's gone well or not well, the fact is, Gaddafi's no longer in power. So Assad has got to be nervous. So he's provoking a situation to show, don't come after me. This is what's going to happen. I'm going to kill your ambassador. I'm going to do a whole lot of things you don't like. I'm going to probably deflect attention against me and onto Israel. So I think that's why that whole part of the world is now going to heat up.
Is that the message that the administration would take from something like this?
I don't know.
Wouldn't this just lead to an escalation?
I certainly am not going to speak for this administration. But I think having a lot of conservatives have said, get rid of the ambassador, pull him back.
Right.
I don't think so. I think that the U.S. ambassador to Syria has two functions. One, by having full diplomatic representation, you give the opportunity for spies, and I like spies. Mm-hmm. The second thing is that he can be America's ears and eyes on the ground, and the third thing is he can be a symbol in the sense of he can go to areas of Syria, support the rebels just by his very presence, and in so doing give them sort of encouragement. Now, not to say you send in the troops, not to say you give them military equipment, but his very presence is a symbol. However, the Syrians realize that too, so that's why they want to do stuff to get him out of there.
Well, and he's done that several times, right? Been in areas where they had recently done demonstrations against Assad. Yeah.
Exactly. Rallying, and not rallying them in the sense of America's going to do this for you, but just by his very presence, lending legitimacy to their efforts.
KT, there's some reporting going on about the Iranians apparently are launching a sub in one of their warships in their Navy to go out into the Red Sea, and some indications that the Israeli Navy is responding to sort of keep an eye on what they're up to. Should we be concerned about this? Is this something that raises flags?
I do, Brian. I do think that this is what you're seeing now, and what you will see going forward is Iran's attempt to have a bigger role in that part of the world. They have not started the Arab Spring, but they sure do want to take advantage of it. Once Mubarak left office in Egypt, if you'll remember, Iran sent 2 warships through the Red Sea, through the Suez Canal, into the Med. This is sort of chapter 2 of that same move. Now, the Israelis are responding as well because they're nervous about the situation, not just with Iran, but in the third week of September, there will be a vote at the United Nations over Palestinian statehood, and the UN General Assembly is likely to recognize them as a state. But it won't change anything, and so I think there's a great likelihood that by October you'll see violence between the Palestinians and the Israelis. And we've seen that before. It doesn't necessarily cause big problems for the United States, and at the end of the day, all I care about is my country. But what it will do is give an opportunity for any of the other countries in the Middle East who want to deflect attention from their own problems, i.e. Syria, to join in some kind of a conflict.
All right. What's the latest on Libya is that the rebels are saying this is your last chance to go down Gaddafi, or we're coming to get you. Do they have any idea of, or do you think they have an idea of where he is? I mean, the way that no.
No, and I think the problem, the great, high fives and victory dance in the end zone that the Western powers, NATO, and the president, everyone made when Gaddafi left Libya or was no longer in charge of his government, I thought that was very premature, because you could now see a protracted period where the rebels try to get their act together, potentially even in insurgency forms, where the rebels even may start fighting each other. Remember, everybody in Libya's got a gun now. Mm-hmm. All the militias, all the former Gaddafi people. And again, what's in it for America? What are we concerned with? I am extremely concerned of their chemical weapons, the residual of their nuclear weapons program, and their 20,000 shoulder-fired missiles, the RPGs, that are somewhere in Libya, and you sure don't want those getting in the hands of bad guys.
I don't know if you've got a chance to read it yet. It just was released, but Dick Cheney's new book, there are a lot of information.
I've read sections of it.
And anything that pops out to you?
I don't think there's going to be anything new, but if you step back and you look at all the memoirs that have come out so far, look at them all together, what it does give you an indication of, and this is, I think, one of the first times you've seen it, is how divided every administration is on any decision. You see the president make an announcement, do a policy, but it shows that internally there's a lot of serious disagreement that continues even after the decision is made, a lot of backbiting, a lot of leaking to the press. So I think it makes, it opens up, pulls back the veil on what really is happening in any administration.
I was curious about, he was making the case in 2007 to go into Syria, and nobody listened to him, but Israel ultimately took care of it.
That's the reactor, not to go into Syria, not to invade Syria, but to bomb the nuclear reactor.
Right, and Israel took care of it, and there was never any kind of response at all from Syria. And that always was fascinating to me, and it was downplayed. Really, it was never really talked about a lot. I mean, the fact that Israel went in and bombed Syria, and Syria just was kind of quiet about it. So it seems to me that was a nuclear facility.
Yeah, it was a nuclear enrichment facility. I think that was actually one of the really best moves anybody made, because it happened. Nobody announced that it happened. The Syrians weren't about to say, "Oh gosh, our nuclear weapons program has been bombed," because they have to admit they have a nuclear weapons program. B, they have to admit their airspace could be penetrated and bombed. The Israelis who did it didn't take credit for it. They very wisely